We should never underestimate small, humble beginnings because sometimes they can turn out to be the greatest success stories. A very grateful morning to one and all present at the moment. My name is Anshul Soni, and I feel deeply honored as well as very privileged to welcome you all in the fourth episode of Imrit Utsav, an erudite festival of discussion. This alumni talk series, presented by Anuvrat, the Departmental Club of Electronics and Communication Engineering, National Institute of Technology Sikkim, promotes a rationale that lights a new fire to our passion for learning. So, it is with great pleasure and respect I welcome Mr. Nissan Chaudhary, who is contemporarily working as a who is contemporarily designated as an engineer in Intel Corporation, for enorming us with his ingenious ideas and views in the form of today's speaker. Not only is it a moment of happiness for us, but also an opportunity to reflect our learning and increasing our proficiency. Sir's journey started at St. Paul's School, where he completed his matriculation in the year of 2011. After that, KSNM Inter School Sultanganj was the second step towards his journey, where he completed his higher secondary education in the year of 2013. Then he opted for a graduate program in the field of electronics and communication engineering from National Institute of Technology Sikkim in 2013 and completed it in the year of 2017. Along with the educational background, he has also gained many experiences and honed his skills. He has successfully completed his internships in Intel Corporation from January 2017 to July 2017 and in Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Along with this, he has also worked on various fields, including study and simulation on cryptographic algorithm on MATLAB, audio KPI parameters analysis, investigation, and optimization, GTI-based framework to test different enhancements and upgrade in BIS. And now he is currently working in Intel Corporation since August 2017. Well, not only he is promising with his academic achievements, but his extracurricular are also precisely prominent in creating an impact of inspiration. He was a member of EC Society Anuvrat, member of organizing committee of Abhiyantran 14, and sponsorship head of Abhiyantran 15, the annual technical fest of NIT Sikkim. Not only technical, he was also the sponsorship head of annual cultural fest of NIT Sikkim, Udgam, and the member of training and placement cell. The benchmark set by the graduates like him is itself a proof that our institution graph has been steadily going up. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Nishant Chaudhary and let's hear him share his epitome of knowledge and skills with us. Sir, it's an honor to have a personality like you to grace the event. So kindly step forward as the platform is all yours.
Hi, Ajay. Thanks for the nice introduction. And it's good to see Anuvrat is now being revived and it's carrying out such a session, the events where everyone is beneficial. So, yeah, without wasting time, let's jump into the presentation. Today, I'm gonna present. Okay, first, let me share my screen. Let me know when you guys are able to see it. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, today we are going to discuss about the embedded system. Though the topic name is embedded system, but I'll be mostly talking about the software side of it. I won't be or explaining you about hardware because I also don't know in detail. So I mostly worked on the software side of it, and hence we'll discuss about that. And we'll also see the relation between the embedded system and nowadays IoT is coming into picture. I think it is already there, not coming. And then we'll talk about the skills you guys will be needing, or you guys will be needing to work in this field. What are the skills you can develop now on in being in the college, and what are the extra skills which you don't have in your syllabus, but in your extra time or in the day-to-day work, you can develop it as you go forward. Okay. And then I'll give you a general overview of what is the general practice when most of the industry follow from development of, or the thinking about a product and developing it and then releasing it to the customer. I'll give you a short overall idea of it, what goes on, what are the steps involved. And then if time permits, then I'll give you a short demo on what a software engineer mostly do, or what you can say I do in my job, okay, in day-to-day job. I'll take an example of GPIO and interrupts and all. I'll walk you through that. So going forward, when we say embedded systems, what all things comes to your mind? I mean, hope it's an interactive session. You guys can reply it, right, by unmuting your mic. It is fine. Okay, let's move forward. It's fine. Whenever you want to ask or you want to say something, please feel free to stop me. So whenever we say embedded system, the green color small board comes to in my mind at least. Okay, where we connect a lot of peripherals, we have LEDs, and we put that whole system, program it into some use case like robotics or the small line follower, edge follower, edge detection robots and all, which we generally do in our third or fourth year in our college, right? So it is more than that. So currently in your house, it might be possible that you are using 10 to 15 such devices, such embedded systems. I won't say directly, but it is embedded deep inside your gadgets, all of your electronic devices. Either it be a calculator, which most of you guys work or in college. Okay, so this is a type of embedded system where it has some specific functionalities. It is supposed to do some specific task, right? It has set of functions depending upon the buttons you are seeing. Okay, and it is supposed to do those, carry on those functionalities or carry on those calculations, right? So for that also they need a computing power. Okay, and when we say an embedded system, we can also say it is a computer, right? And not a general purpose computer like your laptop and desktop, but the small computers with the minimal computing power, which can help in doing small things, right? So one example is this calculator, and then you have the headphone, Bluetooth, wired or wireless. Okay, so this is also a embedded system. It has DSPs in it for noise cancellation and other tasks. Okay, nowadays these embedded devices are becoming smarter, right? You have more sensor in it, more functionality added to it. And then you have microwave oven with a minimal UI, where you set your timer and it's a timer and the temperature, and it does its job accordingly, right? And then you have washing machine. It also gives you a minimal UI. Okay, so the way so that you can control it. Okay, and most of the task is hidden from you. How it does, what goes internally, what's happening internally. Those things you don't know directly. You set it and leave it, right, with some and it will give you the total amount of time it will require to wash your clothes, and after that you can come and do whatever. And then if you go on the industry side of it, you have robotic this arms, right, robotical arms. If you have seen those shows on Discovery, the mega factories and stuff, you will see that these robotic arms is very helpful in the manufacturing industry. Okay, so if you are manufacturing some, for example, Coke bottles or cold drinks and other stuff, so each robotic arms is specialized for a specific purpose or is there for a specific purpose. For example, it could be a machine putting cap on each of the bottle, and there will be another arm which is putting label on it, right? And another arm which will be packaging all those stuff. And these all happen so fast. Means if you see it in real time, all the bottles will move very fast, right? And all these systems should work accurately. And then, okay, so having given these examples, we can say it is nothing but a computer. Embedded system is nothing but a computer, basically a combination of hardware and software designed to perform some specific task. Here, and this is the way it differs from the general purpose computer. We will see more about it, but this is how it differs from general purpose computer. General purpose computer do a lot of stuff, right? You have a lot of software in it. You use Word, you use Chrome, you use some other games. So all those stuff you can run on the general purpose computer, your laptop, your desktop. But these embedded system is a computer which is only designed to perform a specific task. Yeah, nowadays these are getting smarter. We'll come to that. Okay, so one of the example is your Amazon Echo. Okay, so it can be used for home automation, right? You can say Alexa they have built-in assistant called Alexa, again developed by Amazon, and it can be used for home automation, like turning on off light, changing your music, reminding you of stuff, and all those things. So this also has embedded system or some kind of embedded system running on it, right? And over that, they have built more functionalities. Depending upon the use case, you have the functionalities and hence the product. So moving forward, we'll see some of the properties of embedded system, what makes it differ from a general purpose computer, and why these properties are important. We'll talk about it one by one. Okay, so these embedded systems are supposed to work with less resource. Means they don't want an ample amount of computing power. They don't want, they don't require, don't say want, they don't require the ample amount of computing power, memory and stuff, right? For example, headphone, you don't need to store some files directly to it. Because that's not the use case. You generally connect it to your laptop or mobile phone, and those devices will send the data to it. Okay, and your DSP should be able to process and then give it to the speaker to convert electrical signals into audio, right? So they don't need it, the one thing. Okay, and that's why they are supposed to work with less resource, and that's why they have less resource. And also, if you increase the resource for some other purpose, okay, why you can't go on increasing the resources, because there will be more circuitry. Okay, and if there is more circuitry, you will require more power, and if there is more power, your device or the final end product, your gadget, will heat up, right? And you don't want a fan connected to your headphone, right? You don't want a fan connected to headphone to cool it, and you don't want your headphone battery also to run down very quickly. So because of those use case, they have they should work with very less resources. Okay. The point is, most of the task has real-time constraints. So here in embedded system or embedded application, every millisecond matters. For example, a chip connected to your phone, which is responsible for making calls. Okay, so there it is expected to, whenever a person from other end speaks, it should be given to you in very minimal time, right? So overall delay should be less, right? And we have taken an example of a headphone, right? And industrial laboratory comes. So in headphone, when you are watching a movie and the VLC is playing your movie, okay, and your headphone have some delay, right? 1 millisecond or 2 millisecond, and over a 2-hour movie, these delay will become more obvious or more noticeable, right? And you don't want such things to happen, lip sync to happen first in your movie, and then you hear a voice after a millisecond late. So you will simply throw it out, right? You will throw that headphone, you won't use it. So that's why it should work with real-time constraints. So it should work faster. And the robotic arms, which we already talked about, right? So if there is some delay, for example, you miss the cap to put the cap on the bottle, okay, and that bottle goes opened, and somewhere all your cold drinks fell into the system. Okay, so imagine the chaos will be there in that manufacturing plant. So all those devices or your embedded system are supposed to make quick decision, and it should be accurate, and it should be very fast. Means you can't have that delay. If there is some delay, it should be known to the manufacturer or the customer before. Means it will have this much of delay, so that they design overall system like that. But during running, when it is running, it should not incur some more. And then it requires less maintenance and update. So in your general purpose computer, you get the software update very frequently, right, for whatever application you are using. But your laptop also has some embedded processor in it, right? So for example, which is used for booting the device, initial boot up of your device, which and it is called BIOS, right? Basic input output system. So those are the example of embedded software, or you can say the firmware also. Okay, and they don't require frequent update. So how many times you updated your firmware, right? I think once or twice in a year. It's also very much where you connect your what do you say, power cable, and you update your BIOS. And you haven't seen ever any service guy coming to your home and updating the firmware of your washing machine, right? So this is not required, I would say, because there is some specific task or very less task they want to do, and they should be able to do it without any further update. You should develop your code or your overall system in such a way that it doesn't require that much of human intervention. And then the next is it should work in the extreme environmental condition, of course. For example, if you consider the missile or the defense system, generally those are get launched from some glacier or desert where there is no loss of life or away from the human society, right? So those are mostly the extreme weather conditions, glacier, your some maybe in the oceans, or you have torpedo and all those stuff from where you can launch the system, your missile, or you can have defense system deployed. So your embed, and those two have some intelligence, right? Embedded system fitted to it. So all those things should work in the extreme environmental condition. So you should not, your device should not fail there, because if it fails, your whole defense system will fail, and you don't want it to happen. And it should be highly secure. And nowadays, systems are getting connected over internet, right? And when it is connected to internet, it has a lot of capabilities. And with capabilities, there is also a chance of there are some security issues, right? Means anyone can hack into your system and allow it to malfunction, and you don't want to happen. So whatever the code you write, you should write keeping security in your mind. And then all those systems are expected to give correct and reliable results, right? So yeah, whatever example we talk about, I think that covers this point. So in the industry, if robotic arms or consider an example of aeroplane, right? You have many embedded computers into it, and just consider on the go or on the way, your device started malfunctioning, or they are not giving the correct height or the altitude, okay, of your aeroplane. So there are a lot of lives which will come into a stake, right? That may be fatal also. So these systems are, that's why designed very, what do you say, designed for extreme conditions, I would say, right? So the development which goes through it should go through all the validation procedure after you develop or before giving it to the customer. It requires a lot of validation. Your product will run, some test will run on it for a week also. Okay, we generally in industry we call it MTBF. Okay, for a few days and week, and it should provide the result consistently. So these are all things which you can think when you jump into the embedded system. Okay, so these are the points you need to take care of it when you write a code or you design any system. Okay. Okay, so moving forward, we'll check. Okay, so as we have given so much of examples, and it has very less resource, and there should not be any failure. So you need a secure, not secure, software module which manage all these resources, right? Whenever there's a sensor, giving you some input, you need to take some decision based on that, right? So there should be some software module or someone which take cares of all those handling. If an interrupt comes in your system, or if there is a signal received by your sensor, what to be done? Okay, and if at that time some other things are going on, how, based on what condition you should take a decision to stop it and handle your other request, okay, coming into your computer system. Okay, so to manage all those stuff, okay, you have a software module called OS, right? So okay, yeah, so you have OS to do all those stuff. I'll come to it later. Okay, so in the embedded system, most of the time you will running a different flavor of operating system. We call it RTOS, okay, here. So RTOS is nothing but real-time operating system. Okay, you can't have a delay here. So they have designed a specific kind of operating system which is based on real-time constraints. Some of the example is ThreadX, RT Linux. RT Linux is nothing but real-time Linux. Zephyr, RTOS, VxWorks, and these all software is getting developed by different vendors. Okay, before that, embedded system and IoT. Okay, I missed that. So whenever, so what is the relation between both of them? So every IoT system contains an embedded system. Every IoT device contains the embedded system inside it, right? And or you can, if you see it from the other way, it is like whenever you give embedded system the power of connectivity, the capability of connectivity, it gives you a new product which you can call an IoT device. For example, this watch, right? And this connectivity can be anything. It could be internet, it could be Bluetooth, it could be RF, anything, so that it should be able to communicate to the outer world. That's the whole idea here. Okay, and so whenever you have an IoT, okay, so they need to do some extra decision making depending upon the input or the event occurring, input given to sensor or the outside event occurring. They need to have some special, some extra computing power to make better decision. Okay, so for that they have a different kind of OS for them. Okay, so for example, if you take example of your smartwatch nowadays, if Google makes it, it has its separate OS, Wear OS. It's a flavor of Android only, but they have a different flavor of it, right? They can't directly run Android on that. And then Apple Watch, they have WatchOS separately. They are not running iOS there. So they all those stuff are designed for doing real-time app. Yeah, these OS will be running on your devices, which will be handling some real-time scenario. So WatchOS nowadays is able to tell you about your heartbeat in the real time. They will tell about, they can measure the ECG, and they can measure your heart rate and the oxygen level and all those stuff. So whenever these things or your oxygen level in the body goes down, it should notify you faster, right? As soon as possible, at least. Okay, so for that, they don't have, you can't run the whole full-fledged OS, which have some delay on it, which can have some delay on it. And also you don't have that much of a luxury of resources. For example, 8 GB or 16 GB of memory you don't have, and you don't have like an Intel i5 or i7 running on it. So for depending upon the hardware also, you should have a minimal software which should give you a better performance and cover all the functionality. Okay, and then Windows, which you run on general purpose computer, also come up with IoT OS, which they call it Windows IoT. And Ubuntu, I think you guys must be running, or you have it seen running in your computer lab, at least in the college. Okay, there you they also come with the IoT flavor of their operating system, which is Ubuntu Core. Okay, before going here, do you have any kind of confusion or any question? Hello,
So
you guys are there?
of the session, we will also have a question answer session. So I think you
Okay.
can continue now.
Okay, then I will continue. So yeah, given the whole idea of it, what operating system is, what it does. Okay, now if you are interested in this field, or if you are planning to, or if you will plan for first year students, if you plan to go in this field, Okay, what are the skills you will need? Or I'm only talking about the entry level skills. There are some skills which you will develop after coming to industry. Okay, so I'm only talking about what you can develop on in your college right away. Okay, so the first thing is C and C++ programming. You can ignore C++ also if you want, but C is very much required because this programming language is close to metal, and this is what mostly used to control or to program each of the embedded system. Okay, and if you go more into the what do you say, hardware side of it, you may need to work on the assembly language. You don't even have the C, an option of C there. Okay, because you don't have so much of memory or so much of power to convert everything. So it is very likely that you may work on the assembly language too. Okay, and in the C programming, the pointer is the very basic and important concept. Okay, you should be able to understand the pointer, or you should have the better understanding of pointer, your bit field, your shifter operations, okay, your binary conversion and binary to hexadecimal and decimal conversion. Because most of the time when you will program, your values will be in hexadecimal. Your all addresses which you will accessing will be in hexadecimal. So if you are familiar with that, it won't make you feel like what is these new things. So yeah, familiarity with it will help to work properly. And then computer organization and architecture. I think this is there in your syllabus. So study it very carefully, complete your syllabus, whatever is there in the book. Just have a proper understanding of everything. Don't leave that, okay, I don't know these things, whatever. Yeah, nowadays many people think that whatever you are learning in your college, you don't know it will be useful in your job or not. Okay, so don't think all those stuff. Okay, so whoever has designed all these courses has designed something by keeping something in mind. Okay, and if you know where you want to work, you better know what you need to focus on in your college or wherever, right? So if you want to work on the embedded system, or if you have interest on it, okay, so computer organization and structure architecture is a must to have thing. Okay, and then you have operating system. I know in EC, I don't think you have operating system. At least it is not there when I was there. I was in college. So if you don't have, you can directly refer to the NPTEL lectures. Okay, they cover everything and it is totally free, available on their website and YouTube. And if your college permits, or directly ask with the professor and go and sit in the operating system classes with your CSS students. Okay, that will help. And then again, the data structure. You should be knowing data structure, because all the data, whatever is given from the sensor, for example, okay, and yeah, mostly the sensor and IO devices to your embedded system, you should be able to handle those data efficiently. Okay, so for example, a headphone, right? It will give you continuous data, your continuous signal, electrical signal, right? Let's don't go to electronics. If you can think it of data, right? Your voice data, which you should hear, or your the speaker should able to give back to you. So those data should be handled efficiently, right? There should not be too much accumulation of it, and you should not run out of it also, right? Because if you run out of those data, you won't have headphone won't have anything to play, right? And if you accumulate too much also, it will give you some delay in your hearing. So you should be able to handle all those data very efficiently. Okay, store it properly. So whenever required, you should be able to fetch from the memory and give it to the DSP or another processor required. So here data structure comes handy. Okay, you should be knowing about it. At least I think you guys already know about array and stuff. Okay, you should be also knowing about implementation of stack, queue, linked list, doubly, singly, dynamic linked list, and all those stuff you should know properly. Okay, and then assembly language I already talked about. And the next thing is, yeah, it's not a required one, but I would suggest that if you have an option, please do install Linux operating system in your laptop, right? Not Windows. And I think whatever you want to do in the college, or whatever, for whatever purpose you need Windows in your laptop, you can do all those stuff in Linux. For example, Ubuntu, right? You can install Ubuntu and do all those stuff there. Why I'm saying this is because Linux is more of a CLI kind of thing. CLI means command line interface, right? You don't have many of the graphical user interface, GUI. And when you work on the embedded system, you don't have GUI at all. Okay, so mostly you will work with terminals and black and white interface, just like my slide. So it's totally black and white, and you need to run command to do every job. Okay, because you don't have that luxury of running a full-fledged operating system with all those graphics in the right. So you will be mostly working with the command line interface of it. So that's why I'll suggest you to install Linux and just be familiarized with it. I don't want to. I'm not telling you to. You should develop something, some OS and all those stuff. I'm not telling you that. But let's have the familiarity. It will help. So whenever you do some stuff on Linux, okay, mostly you will do it on command line. You will know about Bash. You will in Windows. You will know about bat file, batch scripts, and all those knowledge, small knowledge will help you in your industry when you get your job. All those things will help you. Yeah, and whoever has the original version of Windows, don't uninstall it. You have an option called VirtualBox. It's a virtual machine. You can install Linux there also. But if you are running DOS, if you have a DOS OS and you have the flexibility to change your OS, do install Linux there. Okay, so these all are the skills which you can develop in your day-to-day classes, right? It is already in your syllabus. You don't need to spend extra hours to develop on those. You just need to focus on what you are learning. Now there are some other skills also, which I think I could have developed it if I know in my college back then. But I have learned it all after coming to my office, I would say. Okay, so some of the debugging skills. So debugging skills, to give an example, it's a GDB. Okay, it's a GNU debugger. Okay, so whenever you write any exe or when you will write any C code, okay, so it gives you an executable file, right? Exe or .a file in Linux. So if you guys have worked on IDE or used IDE to debug what is happening when which function is getting called, you have put breakpoint and all those stuff. If you know about this, so you are familiar with the debugging skills I'm going to talk about. Okay, so why I said GDB is because GDB is some command line interface of doing your debugging, and most of the IDEs at the background use this GDB to do all those stuff. So for example, in Visual Studio or in Eclipse, you have an option to put breakpoint on any line, and then you run your code. It comes and hit that breakpoint, and your whole processor stops, or your whole code is stopped here, right? And then you go and see what are all the variables, local variable values and global variable values at this point of time, and you debug why it is not working, what went wrong, and all those stuff happens, right? So back at the back, it is running GDB. And GDB is an open source thing, so you can go and Google it and learn about it. It will help in your industry when you are in job in the embedded system field, right? And then there's a version control system. So version control system is nothing but when you have a multiple version of a same file, you want to at some point keep track of it so that you won't miss the original file which already was working. For example, you make your resume, right? During a placement, you change for each of the company, right? Or you add your skills, and one by one you add it to resume. So every time it is a different version of that file. So you can use Git also to do all those stuff. It will have an ID for each of the version with proper date and time, and you can also see what changes you have made in, for example, fifth last version of it. Okay, and this is also a command line based thing. Okay, so when you come into industry, it's a high chance that you will work in already running project. Okay, so when you come into it, you will be given some specific task in that overall project. So there you will use Git to get all the source code of it and to understand. And after getting source code, whenever you make some changes or you make some bug fixes, you need to use Git only to push it to the main line, So these are the terminologies when you go and use Git. Okay, so GitHub is one of the option. So there you can host your repository, or there you can put your files, and you can use Git commands to sync it, remove it, delete it, and control all the version part of it. So Git an example, and most of the industry use this Git. So if you have time, or if you are already running some of the C files and all, or you are working on some of the project, please do use Git and get familiarized. And then Makefile. So Makefile is nothing but when you have written any of the C file, generally what you do is you use GCC command to compile your code, right? And and when you work on the big project, there will be lots of thousands of C file, and you can't write all GCC commands and give all the file names. So there, utility called Makefile comes very handy. Okay, if you and CMake is a utility to make that Makefile. You can write by your own also. Okay, and after that, I'll talk about these I2C, UART, and SPI are the communication interface, which most of the sensors or your extra device or the peripheral will use to communicate with the microcontroller in your embedded system. Okay, and these are all freely available on YouTube. You can go and learn what it is, how it is, and if you have some extra buck to spend, do purchase some Arduino or ST Discovery board or Texas Instrument Launchpad and all, and do some stuff over here. Just get familiarized with it and do some hands-on. Implement some of these protocols by your own and see what's happening in the background in the microprocessor level. Okay, and then RTOS. Yeah, if you cover all of the skills above, then you can go for the RTOS, real-time operating system, how it is different from normal Windows. Okay, and what are the features there available. And reading data sheet. Yeah, so in the lab you might have, for each of the transistor and stuff, you might have a data sheet. Just don't run away from it. See what is it, what they have, right? You should have a familiarity. Just develop the familiarity with it. So in the industry, whenever you have a product, there will be many peripherals, right? And every vendor will give you peripheral and give you a data sheet. Now you need to figure out everything on your own: how to program it, how to deal with its registers, how to configure interrupts, how to work with NVIC and all those stuff. So their data sheet comes very handy, and if you already know what it is and how to read it, it will be beneficial. So I don't know, am I ahead of time, or I have some more minutes? If it is, then I'll go for more slides. Otherwise, I'll stop here.
So you can continue till 11:45.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now let's talk about the different phases in the product release. So whenever your company or any of the industry thinks about releasing a product, okay, so what are all the steps involved in it? Okay, so the first one, okay, so first of all, people think about its application, because if you are thinking your product now, so it's mostly that you will release that product 1 year or 2 year down the line. So you need to think ahead of time, right? So you will think of its application. Will it be a feasible thing to make such kind of product? Will it be there many customers looking for it? Will there be a use case of it, whatever I am making, or it will be totally useless in the coming years? So all those things you need to think. There are a lot of study and research, market study went on, and then they come up with the final product, what they want, and what they want, for what application they want, and then they go on the requirements to serve all those applications, or to run all those applications. What are the peripherals, what type of CPU, how much memory, and what are all the debug IO peripherals you want to give with your product, so that they can use it, right? And when you are fixed with all the requirements and all the architecture and design, which thing will fit where, and stuff, then you go for SoC design. At least in Intel we do it, and highly possible that you just buy some processor from other vendor and make a product out of it, right? So anything can happen. So in SoC design and manufacturing, yeah, all those requirements will go there, and they come up with your, they will fabricate or they will manufacture your SoC, and uh, uh, then you have your development board with you, right, where you can run the software and stuff. So meanwhile, from the deciding the requirement till getting your development product, what software guys will do? So what they come up with the solution, they also call the pre-silicon validation step or pre-silicon strategies. Okay, so what they do is they come up with the virtual platform. Virtual platform is nothing but the software simulation of your SoC. Okay, so whatever you will having after the development of board or hardware, you try to simulate its functionality in the software. Okay, yeah, it may be slow, and then when you have the software simulation of your SoC, you run all your software you have developed to that virtual platform. You put all those stuff into the virtual platform and try to see if my software is running fine. Yeah, it could have some delays. There can be some limitations, but most of the functionality you can verify depending upon the use case or depending upon the software you are running, right? So, and then you validate those results. Are they expected, whatever you thought, or are the parameters or the end results, are the KPI, we say key performance indicator, right? KPI. So all those things are proper or not, whatever we have expected, or there are some problem. And depending upon if you find any bug in the hardware, or because it's a hardware simulation, so most of the things are there present. So if there is any problem with that in software, they can change easily also, and also they will feedback it to development team, either it be a hardware development team or a software development team. If there is something missing, they can, if we feedback them early, so if there is any component missing or wrongly configured, they can fix it before you have your hardware manufactured, right? And if there is some problem on the software guys can fix it early too. Okay, and then you come, your development board is available. Okay, and when the first time your development board is available, you first time power it on, right? And you run all your software, whatever you have developed, you run first time on it. Okay, and you see how it behaves. And then also you do some kind of validation and check everything is running properly in the real hardware, right? And then you do some bug fixes. Once all those power on is done, and then you do bug fixes, feature implementation, a lot of development goes in. And whatever, and whoever is your customer, it could be internal or external. Basically, in most of the Intel cases, it is not end users. Generally, Intel develop its product and give it to some other vendor, and they come up with the final product. For example, they make a CPU and they give it to HP, Lenovo, and other vendors, and they come up with the laptop, right? So what you will do is you will release yeah. So after that power on, you will have some milestone that at this point of time or down the line, 1 year or some months down the line, you will have first release to your customer, which will again take your software and hardware, will run some of its use case, and they will do some kind of testing and all those stuff in the final end product. And depending upon the problem they see, they will feedback to you, and then you will again do those bug fixes, or if there is a new feature requirement from the customer, you will implement those features, and then you will do more development and validation. So each change you made should go through the validation. That's how you product, at least the embedded product, is getting manufactured. And you know, if it is not validated and something happens while running, you know all those stuff, right? We already talked about it. And then you will release finally to the customer when customer has done all the testing and it is okay with them. Then you will release then you will have the final release to the customer, and your product will start shipping with minimal firmware, or I would say software in it. So this is how the typical overview or the flow of how you develop a product, or what are the steps involved in product development from software point of view, right? There are many steps: licensing, and what do you say, other permission requirement before releasing. Okay, all those things I haven't covered here. So yeah, that's all I wanted to present. Okay, and I can take some questions now.
Thank you so much, sir, for this fruitful presentation. It will definitely help us uh, whatever you have presented. And moving ahead, so I would like to request the participants that if you have any query, you can drop your questions in the chat box, or else you can unmute yourself and ask your queries from the speaker directly.
Yeah, if you unmute yourself and ask, I think it will be good, more interactive.
Sir, the first question is from my side.
Yeah.
Actually, sir, you talked about peripherals and much more about regarding systems and all. So I would like to ask the question. There is something related to that. That it is mostly said that in embedded systems, a combination of functions can reduce memory requirements. So can you please tell me how it is possible?
Combination of
Of
functions can reduce memory requirement.
memory
Okay,
requirements.
yeah, so it's basically whatever the function you write, right? It should be properly optimized, and they should not use a lot of memory. For example, I would say. For example, you want to write a register. Okay, so IO peripheral will expose as a register. It could be a 32-bit register mostly. Okay, and in those register, you need to write some value to make that peripheral work. Okay, and that register is of 32-bit. So in the function which is supposed to write or handle those write those values to the register should take a variable which is also a 32-bit. You don't want to use double there, right? Or some big variable there. So you should understand what is there inside the hardware, and depending upon that, you should use your variable or the buffer and everything. So basically, you should use it efficiently. So if you develop your function or the software in a very optimized way, it will reduce the memory requirement. Yeah, I think the question is in that sense.
Thank you so much, sir. So, participants, if you have any query, you can ask from the speaker.
I don't know. I'm not able to hear. Your voice is not
You are
audible.
not audible, so you can drop your question in the chat box.
Yeah, you can drop your question.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Good
Hi,
afternoon,
Abdul.
sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I have one question that what should be the place, what should be the strategies for the campus placement, like interviews, what should we prepare for them, and what as
Okay,
the
so
prerequisite for like a good company like Intel we should focus on.
okay, so yeah, this is the general question I have been asked many times over LinkedIn also. What I would say is you can't have a strategy for overall Intel, right? Intel do a lot of stuff. It's not only embedded system. It do a lot of stuff. Okay, and which team is coming for the campus placement is very hard to tell. Okay, so you can't prepare for everything. And whenever you say Intel, don't think it as only company which has a CPU as a product. Okay, so it is a very vast thing. Intel do a lot of stuff. It is in different industry. It make product for different industry. Okay, so my best recommendation will be wherever your interest lies, right? So on whichever subject you are very interested in, you make that. Yeah, you work on that only. I would say if you are thinking of a placement, right? It may be possible or may not be possible. You get placed in Intel, okay, but there will be different companies which will be looking for that required skill set. So if you, for example, if you have a interest in embedded system, I already talked about the skills, right? If you have good knowledge of all those stuff, you will get, I think the company will consider you for will give you a job offer. But again, if you think of a overall company and then you will prepare, there could be a lot of stuff which you need to prepare and you will forget something which you already know or which you were good at, right? So don't do things. First, in this all 4 years before coming to the placement, you explore things, you find your interest, what is most interests you, and then you develop the skills based on your interest. Don't consider like I should get placed in Intel or Qualcomm or something. If you know your interest and you worked on it, you will definitely get a job in any of the industry looking for that, and you will get paid good. So don't consider, don't always prepare yourself according to the company, but do prepare yourself according to your interest.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
And
sir.
yeah, another thing, means, so for example, you find what you are looking for and you want to go in that field, either it be a embedded system, either it be VLSI and other stuff. Okay, so you can directly go into the jobs.intel.com, jobs.qualcomm.com, or in Nvidia or other companies. You can go into the career section. There you have an option to filter out. So you can filter out the job opportunities based on internship, if they are looking for undergrad students. Okay, so all those filters are available, just like you do shopping in Myntra. Similarly, you have those filters, you apply those filters, and you will see some of the job openings if it is available, and they generally comes and go. That means you need to keep looking for it, and prepare your resume and directly apply for it. There is an option to apply. It's not like whoever is working in that company only can apply. You can also apply directly for internship opportunities or job opportunities directly. So no, so again, don't be dependent on only training and placement cell that they are only responsible for placement. They are doing their best, and you should also do yours. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, Sahil. Good morning.
Sir, as I am in first year, I face a lot of problem about programming, sir.
Mhm.
Sir, can you tell me that what was that things that you loved about programming?
Okay. So basically, you do the programming to solve solve some specific task. For example, how would I put it? You do some kind of you can do some kind of automation and stuff, right? So, for example, mm, what should I say here? Okay, so in in programming, you will solve generally the real life problems, right? You will try to automate thing, or you will try to develop some kind of logic which will make your things easier. Just a vague example, a small example only, right? For example, you want to download some kind of some movies, for example, from the internet whenever it is getting released or something like that, right? You can write a Python script which will continuously look for it in the Google. Okay, and then whenever it is applicable, it will go through the links and it will download and put it in your PC. Okay, so it's a hypothetical example. I'm just taking it for example purpose only. You can do it also. It's not a big problem. Okay, so doing all those stuff automatically, and when you code it and when you see those things are getting done, means in real life, it excites you. And another thing I would say, in my college days only, we have a workshop, robotic workshop, right, where it was I think master and follower robots, right? So there is one master, wherever it goes the follower should follow them only. Okay, so all those things, when you do code it, okay, and you see those things are working in real life, okay, and you take part in some kind of competition, for example robo wars and all those stuff, and you develop everything from your own, it gives you a very good feeling that yeah, I write something and it is working now, right? So all those things motivated me. Okay, and then coming, like, you are in first year and you don't know about programming, I would say that first see what it is, what it is capable of, and try to learn from the basics. There are many books available also in your college. I think NSci by E. Balaguruswamy and Let Us See by Yashwant K. Okay, and those are the some books from which are good books. Okay, and that will give you ample of knowledge. I mean the basic knowledge. If you are in first year, you can consider reading that. And then if you have some, and then when you develop some of the skills, you can go for other books like Hardware to Learn C. Okay, that is very much hands-on approach. They will introduce you to the thing, and they will ask, that book will ask you to Google it out and do things by your own. So that will help you. That helps me also very much. Yeah, I think that will be helpful for you too.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So we have a question in the chat box that asked by Sakshi Rajput. How to start from scratch in an effective manner while learning the code, like learning to code.
So if you are starting with the code, it's good to start with C. Okay, so that's the first language is taught in many of the colleges. Okay, and you do refer to some basic books. Okay, and have your concept clear. What are variables, static, global, where it is getting used. Okay, and after you have your basic clear, try to implement them in a sense like try to write an application. For example, one of my friend, he was telling me about when he was in 12th grade, he has written a game, a KBC game, right? And which was totally developed on C. Okay, so after learning, if you just keep learning and you won't implement it, you will forget it, and also it won't excite you or give you the motivation to learn more. But if you implement whatever you have learned, okay, if you implement it and if you see those things working in your hand, it will give you very good feeling, and that will motivate you to learn more and to seek more how these things works. If I have put up so for example, if you start with an Arduino board, right, most of you guys might have worked on it or not, you will get to know about it in second or third year. So you for example, you have implemented a button, and that button goes to one of the pins in the Arduino. Okay, and you directly use the library in the Arduino and make it work, and you supply some kind of voltage, and depending upon that voltage, your motor starts, and your whole system or the robot, for example, move forward. And when you want to turn it right or left, you will stop one wheel and you will put the high voltage on another wheel so that it can turn left and right. Right, so all those things is okay. Okay, you have done it, it feels good. What next now? Okay, so now go inside it and see how those things work. Means you have used directly the libraries, but how a GPIO is already getting configured inside it. So once you have developed that robot from scratch by yourself, it will motivate you to learn further, right? If you directly go and learn about the GPIO, what it is, how it is implemented, it might not interest you. So my suggestion will be, whatever you have learned, first clear out the basics. Okay, and try to develop something or write an application out of it. Okay, and then while writing application, you will also feel that, okay, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, and then you will figure it out, you will search it, you will learn it, and that's how you learn, starting from scratch, by doing things, by learning, doing, and again learning, and again doing. I hope it answers your questions, Sakshi.
Thank you, sir. Do participants have any further queries? Sir,
I think
Ronak has.
there's one message, Ronak. Yeah. Okay, so okay, I'll read that question. How can we improve embedded systems? Like right now, we know things that we already discovered. So how can we implement something new in it? Okay, so that's a good question. Okay, so yeah, when you are working on an embedded system, most of the time you use whatever is available, right? You learn it, you use it, you learn it, you use it. There are sensors, there are codes written how to use it. You just Google it out and use it, right? Now, of course, sometime it comes in my mind, what I will do. Will I be always using it, or I want to develop something new. What can I do? And you can think about everything is already there. I should leave that embedded field. There's no scope of improvement or something. So it is not like that. So for example, I have given an example of I2C, right? It is a protocol to communicate using which a sensor communicates to the microcontroller. And if you know deep inside it what's happening and how it is, you can think of it, think of improving it, right? You can think of increasing the rate of communication, being in the memory constraint limits. Okay, there are limits in the embedded system. Being in that limit, how you can improve it so that you can send a faster amount of data, more amount of data in a very fast manner. Okay, so that's how you can go on improving those things. For example, nowadays, if you, I don't know if you guys have heard about PCI, right? There is different generation, third gen, fourth gen, and fifth gen, the PCI generation, right? And with each gen, there is an improvement. There is an improvement in speed. There is an improvement of features. So to discover, to develop anything new or to improve anything, you should first know about its basic, how it is currently now, and what you want to do, what you want to improve, and how you can do by what changes you need to do to improve it. That's how you keep on improving things. So I'll also give an example, USB 2.0, right? Or USB 1.0. The data transfer speeds were in KB or 1 MB or 2 MB, right? Now it is still a USB, but with a Type-C connector, or USB 3.0, okay, which can take the speed up to 57 or 60 Mbps. I'm talking about the real use case. Theoretically, I think it is more. So if you have a Type-C connector in your laptop and your hard disk is a Type-C supported, or USB 3.0 supported, and if you try to transfer some big files, now you can see the more speed, I mean 60 Mbps and stuff. Before, it was some 10 years down the line, or I think 7 to 8 years back, it was happening in KB, and sometime it was touching that MB. Okay, so this is a kind of improvement. This is a kind of the improvement in protocol, USB protocol, and there are some, of course, hardware changes required for that to implement. So this is how you think of improving things in the embedded world.
Bhaiya, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Bhaiya, right now you are working in a Intel, one of the biggest tech company, and there is also lots of company like IMD and IBM, Nvidia. They're providing the same microprocessor at a much cheaper cost price. If you want to purchase any gaming purpose processor, then what should we prefer best? It is worth if you're taking Intel or any others. You are as from core from Intel, that's why.
So are you going to buy one of the laptop and you're asking me for the recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you can buy whatever comes in your budget.
It's not
Okay.
about
I won't.
It's
Sorry.
I'm not asking about anything query about related studies, gaming
Yeah,
purpose
I got
only.
it. Yeah, so you can buy whatever suits your need. Okay, go to that specs. What are all the specs they implement? Okay, either it be a Intel or AMD. Okay, and what graphics you need. There are many hands-on on the YouTube. Okay, where they review the products and they talk about the pros and cons of each of it. So go through it, shortlist it, and then depending upon your budget, go and buy it. So all things are good. At the end, if you are a customer, budget also matters, right? So whichever comes in your budget, and you should take it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there is a question in the chat box.
Okay, Deepak Gupta. What are the software
Asked by
which
Deepak
can be
Gupta is
used to
asking that,
simulate?
so what are the softwares which we can use to simulate embedded systems in Linux?
I'm not getting it. Means what kind of simulation you want to do? Any application, or if you can say me the use case, I may think through it. So one of in my slides I talked about virtual platform, right? VP. So that is some kind of software simulation of your SOC, and that is means developed by some third-party vendor. Right? It is not like freely available. But if you're talking about some circuitry simulation or which register to connect where to do your job, I think there's a software called Multisim provided by NI, National Instruments. You can implement all those stuff. You can connect oscilloscope and everything virtually in the software, and you can read the output of any of the GPIO pins and stuff like that.
Thank you, sir. I hope that participants do not have any further queries to ask. So actually, Hemant sir, due to busy schedule, Hemant sir was not able to join this meet, but he sent his best wishes to you.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you, sir. Srijit sir is there?
no, sir. Currently, he is
Okay,
not
no
also.
problem. No problem.
So, concluding the fourth episode of the Alumni Talk series, I would like to thank today's speaker, Mr. Sir, and the entire graceful participants present in the meet. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. We will be back with the new exciting episodes and another great minds. But till then, so dream, drive, and be in focus. And just stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Archie.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, thanks. So if you guys have any other queries, you feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Okay, you can directly talk to me there, and I'll be happy to help you guys.
Drop your mail ID in the chat box so
Sure,
that we
sure,
can.
I'll do that. Okay, thank you, guys.